I'm James. This is Luke. We both work at Rise at 7. We're a search-first creative agency based in Sheffield, but also got offices in London, Manchester, and soon to be New York. We've only been around 2.5 years now, but we're currently at 110 employees. And myself and Luke were probably pretty early starters, really, weren't we?
Yeah, number 11, I think.
Number 11 for Luke, and I was like number 24 or something. So we've done lots, worked on a lot of campaigns throughout the time, and obviously had loads of ideas over that time. So got a pretty good process for the forming behind a great campaign idea, and we're just going to go into that. Oh yeah, so basically where we do our magic, a lot of our work it's global. It's not just in the UK. So all these amazing cities and countries coming up now is where our work lands across social, PR, but it's all got search at the heart. A little bit about me. I'm James. Obviously, I come from a content creation background. Before working at Rise, I was a videographer, social media manager, basically anything creative. That's where I came from. And I joined Rise nearly 2 years ago now as a content creator, but I quickly took over the internal marketing, and hopefully some of you will have heard of Rise, and that's basically been my job.
So I'm Luke. I'm content marketing director at Rise. I've been in the SEO industry for about 11 years now. And under my remit is the campaigns team that we have at Rise. So that's why we're going to be talking a bit about the formula behind a successful campaign. So first of all, we want you to put in the chat what your biggest struggle with coming up with ideas when it comes to coming up with ideas, and drop it in the chat, and then we can sort of review at the end and see if there's common themes that come up. I did a poll on Twitter not long ago and LinkedIn, and basically found that getting sign off on ideas is the biggest struggle. Coming up with ideas as well also came up fairly high on Twitter, but not on LinkedIn. Obviously, people on LinkedIn think that they're pretty good at coming up with ideas, but getting sign off was definitely an area that people struggle with. So basically, we've had that in mind throughout this deck about not only how you can come up with a good idea, but also how you can use it to get sign off as well. No one really has problems with executing the ideas, or very small amount, and also measuring ideas seems to be fine, but coming up with ideas and getting sign off seems to be a bit of an issue. So we're going to run you through a few slides really on our kind of process for coming up with ideas to start with. So first of all, there's no such thing as a bad idea. There definitely is. I've had loads of them. I've heard loads in brainstorms as well. James has had loads in particular.
Yeah, loads of bad ideas.
And I'm not actually that creative. So I'm a content marketing director. My job is to come up with ideas and review ideas, but I don't consider myself a creative person really. I'm actually a bit of a robot. Not my words, that's words of friends and family and an ex-girlfriend. But what I mean by that is that I need valuable input to have a valuable output. This is my creative spectrum, basically. On the right-hand side is what's in my head. That's always glorious, award-winning work. On the left-hand side is my actual creative capabilities. I can't actually implement any of those ideas myself. It comes out looking like a 4-year-old's finger painting. I'm not like a creative designer type person, but I have good ideas. And most of the ideas I had in the past actually came out around 50% of what was in my head. I used to struggle to be able to get a campaign that was like what was actually in my head, and work with the teams to be able to get something that was really good. And over the past few years, I managed to get that up to around 90%. So what's in my head is actually executed, and it comes out around 90%, and that's working with other talented people like designers as well. It's got really saturated out there. It reminds me a lot of 2015 at the minute. It was really saturated in terms of digital PR, link building in particular, and it feels the same at the moment as well. Getting stories to stand out from 500 other stories in an inbox is a skill. I started off in link building in 2013, and I was rubbish, and I could build links at scale. I wouldn't be able to do that now with those campaigns. It's got much harder, and that's why we've got a dedicated PR team, and it's a big PR team of around 40, 50 people now. And creating campaigns that works across multiple channels is even harder too. So in terms of how we think, we've got a process for coming up with ideas. We won't just look at audience interests and what's going to get sign off and what's on brand. We'll look at the target sites that we want to get on, what they're actually talking about. We'll add as much depth and as many angles as possible to the campaign idea. We'll try and link it to some form of emotion or disruption. And also we'll link it to some sort of call to action or engagement. We've got a few examples of campaigns later of how we're creating demand for search and getting people to search for things as a campaign. Basically, if we tick all these boxes, we've got a campaign that's probably going to work. Apologies about putting a Venn diagram in, but I didn't know how else to format to put it in. but we call this like the sweet spot, basically. So we've got what the client wants to talk about. So what they see as on brand, the areas they want to be associated with when it comes to campaign ideas. We've got what the media actually talk about themselves, and then we've got what the target audience actually care about. And we try and come up with campaign ideas that sit in the middle of something like that. Too much to the left-hand side of what the client wants to talk about, it might not be newsworthy. Too much to the right-hand side, it's newsworthy but not on brand.
So where do you start in this process and coming up with ideas? One of the best traits, I think, and I know Luke agrees because he posted something the other day on LinkedIn, but being curious out there, going out there, absorbing information, researching, just seeing what's out there in the creative landscape, just will help you form your ideas. But you got to remember, it's not easy. Coming up with ideas, everyone thinks they can do it and everyone wants to be able to do it, but it's not an easy process. Timeline's getting shorter. Everyone wants the work delivered now. So it's just more pressure on that idea gen process. Clients are more demanding. They want it now as well. They want to see it live in a few weeks. And you're facing competition from creatives all around the globe. There's amazing agencies out there and there's amazing creative work out there, and you've got to cut through that with your own idea gen. Professionals in every industry use tools, right? So creatives don't have to be the exception. There's no reason that creatives just should not use the tools. We don't wait around for ideas to come to us. We actually have to hunt them down. Professionals don't leave things to chance, so creatives shouldn't either. So first bit thing for me is that curiosity. Absorb all the different types of content you can across social, data viz, search trends, anything you can see out there in the advertising and marketing world. Absorb it, look how they've done it, how has it performed, where's it getting spoke about. So get your screenshots ready. Here's some of my favorite sources of inspiration. I'm not going to go through them because they are boring lists, but here's some great ones for creative inspiration. You've got a lot of Adweek, famous campaigns, creative review on there. I would go through these periodically and just see the work which is going on out there in the world. It is inspirational and it can also get your brain ticking a bit. So take a screenshot of these. They're more of the creative ones. But what I like to really push the boundaries is the data and search inspiration sources. Like, data does not have to be boring. If you do one thing from this webinar for me, go and check out Reddit and go on Data is Beautiful, and you'll see some amazing creative work and how a simple data story can be created in such a unique way, which also helps the campaign, right? It helps that press cut through and looks better on site, gets more engagement, drives more traffic. So take a screenshot as well. And you got Google Trends, obviously, which is very close to our heart as our proposition of being search first. So yeah. Cool.
So this is a BuzzSumo webinar. I love BuzzSumo. It's one of my favorite tools. It's like my head in a tool, just with slightly less anxiety. But we use BuzzSumo to analyze themes that do well. So let's say you're a honeymoon provider, so you sell honeymoons. We would whack in the product term or the key term into BuzzSumo, and it'll pull out the kind of themes and the most socially shared content around honeymoons. So I can tell there's 711 articles produced in the last 12 months. It died a bit of a death after COVID. I can tell the most popular domains that talk about honeymoons, and not surprisingly, this kind of sentiment on those articles is quite lovey-dovey, as you'd expect. But then we expand that out and we go into engagement rings and we analyze that as a theme. And we know that that's nearly double the amount of articles published around engagement rings over the past 12 months than honeymoons. Still relevant to that client. A slightly more diverse list of domains that talk about it too. And then we go out further, weddings, loads and loads of articles published about weddings, much more diverse list of domains and slightly more diverse list of emotions as well. So we keep doing that, going out like that, analyze themes and pull out tropes that consistently do well. So things that appear during that theme analysis that seem to come up quite a lot and they seem to perform quite well. They're socially shared, they're talked about quite a lot. And then we try and find that middle ground. So when I was analyzing this for honeymoons, on the right-hand side, you've got what the media talk about can be too far removed from the brand sometimes. Like, there's a lot of articles around people dying on their honeymoons, and that's like some of the most socially engaged content. But as a honeymoon provider, I'm going to guess you want to stay away from people being electrocuted on their honeymoons and publishing any content around that. On the left-hand side, there was quite flimsy content like 10 best honeymoon destinations for every type of couple, 13 best honeymoon destinations in the US. Stuff that was published about every now and again, but nothing that's going to build coverage at scale if you're going to do a list article like that. And then in the middle ground, there was stuff around, you can now stay in Edward and Bella's honeymoon home from Twilight. So that's the kind of stuff that would sit in that middle ground that is on brand, and the media do talk about that sort of stuff. We don't copy that. We will then take that evidence into the brainstorm, basically. And at this point, when you're researching, you'll probably have a few ideas. So I'd like to do loads of research, do the hard work, and then leave it. Don't have a brainstorm. So you're not warmed up yet, you'll tear a hamstring, basically. Go and clear your head. Go on a run, although running's like terrible, so you don't have to. Have a bath, a bit more of a generic tip for you, not necessarily anything to do with the presentation, James. Yeah. Don't have a brainstorm yet. You let your subconscious do the work. So you've done all the hard work, you've got all this data, you've got all this research. Educated ideas will start coming to you. Then you'll have a moment of clarity. Make sure you write it down. Lost count the amount of times I woke up in the middle of the night with an idea, not wrote it down, and then forgot it. And it was probably not very good anyway. Then have a brainstorm. So you've got educated ideas, themes, and a few things you can form a brainstorm with now. We've got a brief there, not the most exciting thing in the world, but basically you can send that round to the team before the brainstorm, so they're not coming in unprepared, basically. And that will have things like target live date, the budget, key topics to avoid, topics that have done well within BuzzSumo, channels to focus on, main competitors, all that sort of stuff. So sources of inspiration as well. So different types of campaigns that have done well in that niche. So the team know what's going on when they go into that brainstorm. In terms of who you take into a brainstorm, don't take 20 people. We try and take in a campaign owner. So that's our campaign managers or campaign leads or myself or someone like that. They decide on the best idea. They don't have to come up with all the ideas. They just decide on that best idea in the brainstorm, and then they protect it throughout the whole process until it goes live. A voice of the client, or sometimes the client themselves. We don't do too much of that, but you could test that out. But that's usually a client services person who's just like, no, they said they don't like this area. Or if you're doing it internally in the brands, obviously you should all be pretty clued up on the actual brand you're working with. A creative, so they decide on the best format for the idea. So when I've got an idea, sometimes I don't know the best formats to be able to put that in, and a creative will be able to do that. And then also an expert on the topic. So we do a lot of gaming brainstorms, like for gaming clients in the past, we'll take in a gamer because they know the actual niche. Connor, who shoots the source, is a big gamer, and he came in, he's come up with ideas that we've pitched to EA and things like that, because he knows what the audience likes. Then you can start unofficially vetting without being boring in the brainstorm, but things like, does it have enough layers as an idea? Is there enough legs there for it? Does it actually make them feel something? Is there any kind of emotion attached to this idea at all? So then you can unofficially validate in the ideas, basically. So that's the theory behind how we come up with ideas. I've now got an example of how we've actually implemented that for a client. So the brief was improve the backlink profile in the US and Europe. This is for a company called Underlucky Stars. They sell star maps. So if you get engaged and you want to know what the constellations look like at that point in time, you can get a star map that shows you that, basically. So it's quite a cute product. The product theme, star maps doesn't mean what I thought it meant at all. If you're a stalker, it's perfect. It's basically where people live in America, like where Hollywood celebrities live. So that was what came up, and it didn't really give me anything. Secondary theme, I put in night sky. Really like high amount of socially shared content around the night sky. People seem to really like it. There was loads of stuff basically to go off with this, and that's where I started. Other secondary themes came up, so stargazing, Milky Way, light pollution were all things that consistently came up as secondary themes I explored. And they all had legs. So in the middle, we had stargazing, supermoons, and light pollution, like three key themes that came up consistently, and something there was definitely legs there that we could brainstorm ideas around. Supermoons were great for reactive PR. So this client had never been in the likes of Fox News or Mail Online, and seemed to be a supermoon or a pink moon or something moon every other week. So we formed a reactive PR calendar, provided expert comment on that, and then we picked up loads of coverage just from reactive PR because we knew supermoons were being talked about fairly consistently. Light pollution had way more potential. I forgot to put a link on this, but it's a really cool piece by National Geographic that shows a time lapse of light polluted places over time. It's like really cool. And we found things like 80% of Americans can no longer see the Milky Way. So it was like a key stat straight away that we could lead with. Seasonality wise, it was a hot topic. It was being talked about quite a lot consistently. There was over sort of 60, 90 odd articles published per month around light pollution. it was on trend, so it's really important. Astronomers, everyone was getting annoyed with SpaceX for sending more satellites into space and causing more light pollution. So at the time, it was really real hot topic. It was on trend. I think we actually created a petition to stop SpaceX as well at the same time. And pollution in general was a talking point post-lockdown. There was loads of articles like this that showed like before and after imagery and comparisons of two things, like there being no people on the street or smog clearing in Beijing or something like that. So that was a talking point post-lockdown. We knew that it made people sad. So light pollution made people sad. We wouldn't do a campaign that was going to try and make people laugh around light pollution. So it was around pollution. It's a fairly serious topic. There was also a bit of a wow factor in there as well. So we had all that. Then the next part was angles and depth. I taught myself the bottle scale, easy one for me because it was 1 to 10. I could figure that one out myself. But that basically showed the most light polluted cities in the world and which ones were a 10 on that scale in terms of the worst light pollution in the world. Then came the creative. So it wasn't actually massively data heavy. We had the bottle scale. The creative, let's flip it and show what a 9 on the bottle scale looks like as a 1. So a place that's really badly light polluted. Let's show what it looks like without any light pollution or what it could look like with no light pollution. Found this cool bit of slider code. So this shows like before and after in comparison of 2 images. And I wanted to use that for a while on a campaign. And this is what it looked like. So we compared before and after imagery of cityscapes and what they would look like with no light pollution. You could slide it across. It was interactive. We used all the big cities around the world. It had multiple country angles as well as regional angles. So Cape Town, New York, loads of other cities that we used for this. And it looked really cool and the creative was really good. And we just superimposed basically the Milky Way in the background of these cities. So the creative was cool. Then came the promotion and the outreach. We had multiple different angles. The one that actually picked up was just look how cool these images look, the visual cityscapes angle. We had a bit of a COVID angle we could go out with. And also there was a SpaceX angle or an anti-SpaceX angle that we could have gone out with. Final part was validating. We sort of unofficially did this at the time, to be honest. This was more in my head. But since then, we try and validate more ideas. So there's evidence of the theme. Light pollution was talked about quite a lot. There was depth and layers to it. We used the bottle scale. We had actual data on it. Design application, it was a cool landing page. There was an emotion that we could link it to. And also we knew over 1,200 journalists had talked about light pollution in the past. It was on trend, it was a hot topic, and we knew the emotions linked to it. So basically it ticked all the boxes. We'd be confident that that campaign would work. And it did. So this is my first idea I pitched at Rise. It picked up links and coverage in Sky News, Forbes, Fox, Lonely Planet, all in the space of about a weekend, I think it was. So over 48 hours in the weekend. So 84 links that we got, 22,000 sessions to the site as well. It was in 15 countries. So I did this on a CMA webinar last year, and some guy was in Cape Town. He said he saw it in the local Cape Town press. So it just sort of went everywhere. It was in Slovakia, Greece, everything like that, as well as a lot of US publication picked it up too. And also there's a big increase in branded search traffic year on year as a result of reactive PR plus big campaigns like this that we did for them. And remember, I'm a bit of a robot. You can probably tell that from my tone. But I had input that provided a valuable output. So I knew there was light pollution, that there was a wow factor. Before versus after comparison imagery was working during lockdown or produced quite a lot. I had the ball scale and different angles. There was a global appeal to it. And the output led to a cool interactive landing page, a visual cityscapes angle, the ball scale 1 versus 9, and a multiple country appeal as well. So that's how I used that process without actually being creative myself. It was just evidence, input and output, and then worked with people who are better than me at design and PR to actually get it live and get it out there. I remember like getting sign off can be a pain on things. So there's certain ways to go about it over the years that I've learned to be able to pitch a campaign to help get sign off, and ideas are subjective. So whether you're in-house or agency, you can be pitching ideas, and it can be, I've got this great idea, I've got this great idea, why don't we do this, why don't we do this? It's very subjective. If you can remove the subjectivity by showing your workings out and how you got there, you can package up all that work that you've done and say, we're doing this idea because of this. This is all the evidence. Or you can reverse engineer that and say, okay, you've got a great idea, let me try and vet that and let me try and validate it. And that removes some of the subjectivity, basically. In terms of winning formulas as well, we've got a few different examples of different types of campaigns now, but something that does work well and always has worked well is product and trends. So matching products with trends seems to work really well. We've done lots of like campaigns for spa seekers where we've done like a mulled wine spa or a Harry Styles spa and stuff like that, matching a service or products with a trend that's going on at the minute. So concepts in the sneaker world are huge. So sneakerheads love whether they're fake or real. So like Dragon Ball Z sneakers, Pokemon sneakers, everyone laps it up. It goes viral. It gets on lots of publications and on social platforms as well, and also like Reddit. So instead of just doing one concept, this is for the Soul Supplier, a sneaker affiliate site. We decided to create multiple concepts and put them all in one place called the Soul Concept. This included things like Marvel concepts, cryptocurrency concepts. We have mashups with universities, retro toys. We've got a Furby one in there and stuff like that. And we put it all in one place, called it the Soul Concept. We're picking up different types of coverage from each different concept too. So each concept's got its own media list. It's got 21,000 page views so far, but it's increasing. We can build coverage and links to this, just matching product with trend. Anything that's coming up, we can create a new concept for and show what that would look like as a sneaker. And the approach was just that. Basically, we had gaming, Marvel ones, for example, education ones, and then each one had their own media list bespoke to that one. So gaming, film and TV, university and lifestyle, and also a custom social audience, people who like Air Jordans and Spider-Man. And we could target them on multiple different platforms using that. And also pretty cool, we've been generating search demand for concepts that don't actually exist yet. So we've got people searching for the Lokis, which is what we called them. And they're searching for that and trying to find the sneakers based off what they'd seen on other websites. Same with like Jordan 4 Game Cubes and stuff like that. So we generate search demand for sneakers that don't exist yet. So we added in an upvote system to the Soul Concept as well. And that way people can upvote their favorite ones, and actually we might actually try and get one made eventually. So product plus trend really works when it comes to like a winning formula for campaign ideas. And James is going to talk a bit more about generating search demand and using ideas that generate search demand now.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that we do here, is the removing the subjectivity and proving the idea through data, through tools, and you can do with ideas through products that generate search demand. So here's a campaign we ran, how long ago was this? About a year and a bit ago?
This was actually, I think even before I joined. I joined just after we'd launched it, I think. So.
Yeah, it's a really cool campaign. Basically, it was a dog jumper campaign for Misguided, and it had some really interesting results. So this is the story about how Misguided became the go-to brand for dog jumpers. Misguided basically had loads of dog jumpers on the website. They had all the stock there, basically sat in a warehouse. No one wanted them. No one was searching for them. They were just sitting there. So they came to Rise at 7 to basically say, can you help us get rid of them, build some demand? So this was our strategy. This is what it looked like. On the site, stage one was pairing our dog jumper with a human jumper and use PR to set up an exclusive. We know through the publications that we track a lot of different publications of what sort of different type of content they talk about. Dogs tends to be something that gets a lot of media pickup. So the obvious option was to pair that with a human and push it out to press. And we did an exclusive with Tyler, and Tyler has massive engagement, massive click through to the website, and there's a very engaged audience with this type of subjects. Stage 2 was gather a list of influencers and dogfluencers. Yeah, they do exist, and then get them promoting the product launch through gifting on social media. So basically making sure that everywhere you could see you and your dog in matching jumpers. Stage 3 was we went to the wider press and we build links to the category pages, so straight into the dog jumpers category by PR and product roundups. And then stage 4 was keep launching new products periodically, and then keep selling into the press and covering competitor launches and stuff like that.
We were discussing why this works before this webinar, yeah. And the answer is just dogs. People like dogs.
So yeah. Well,
there's no exact science behind this one. People like dogs.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. I'd engage them. So yeah, we pushed it to wider press, and then this happened. It literally went everywhere. It got on The Sun, Tyler, OK, Bustle, Metro, went everywhere across the nationals. And it's the interesting thing, Misguided started to rank first for dog jumpers with 3,300 searches a month, so search volumes. And if you look at it, this is a Systrix visibility chart. So basically tracks where this page ranks on Google and its visibility score based on Systrix. And you can see the massive increase in visibility because of all the backlinks to this product page. And it started ranking #1 for dog jumpers. And what happened was it created a search demand. It started creating the demand for the jumpers. Everyone wanted to buy them. They didn't want to buy them before. So searches basically increased 50% year on year. There were 27,000 searches on average in November 2018 when this was launched. But now, well, not now, but when this data, we pulled this data in last year, a year later, there are 40,000 searches. And that campaign just showed that it's building a demand year on year. Sometimes you can guarantee ideas will work, and this is my favorite bit because I just love this next campaign, and it's just basically reverse engineering the process, slightly different to Luke's using BuzzSumo. This still uses tools, still uses data, and it still removes that subjectivity from it. So we flipped idea gen on its head. So what do these two things have in common? UK top 40 and the catwalk. Currently in the world, TikTok is massive. Music goes viral on TikTok before it even enters the charts. So I'm sure everyone can appreciate that there's an annoying TikTok song and 2 weeks later it's in the charts. You see a fashion trend on TikTok or Instagram Reels, it's suddenly trending in the press. So the runways are no longer creating the trends social media is, and it's a big shift in the last few years. Music and fashion are now designed to be social first, so we need to be on top of that for our clients. And then TikTok is creating huge demand for products through these influencer campaigns. You can see influencers like Molly Make PLT, for instance. She can drive massive amounts of searches depending on what she wears, and they've got a whole network of influencers doing this. So they create headlines like this: TikTok changes fashion this year, TikTok Fashion Month to conclude. Everyone is talking about what is happening on TikTok. So that was a bit of a light bulb moment for us. So came up with this theory. We saw something going viral on TikTok, and basically we looked into the search results. TikTok leggings, they were everywhere. I can't remember the date of it, but they were going viral on TikTok. You couldn't go on your For You page without seeing these TikTok leggings. So we decided to look who was ranking and the search volumes for the term TikTok leggings, or ribbed leggings, as that's what they actually were. And you can obviously see here at the time they were absolutely spiking for that search term. That's not a brand term, that is just the product. So the TikTok leggings trend, between 17th of Jan and 4th of April last year, there was a 45% increase in Google searches, just through TikTok. So that's huge. For TikTok leggings, so it was 966% increase. The last one was for just ribbed leggings, the actual product, but TikTok leggings, huge search increase. So the numbers prove that TikTok and search work hand in hand. If you see something going viral on social media, people go to Google to search for that product. So what do the trends mean for our clients? How can we use this bit of insight to lead a campaign? So we looked at an example. Zara, not one of our clients, but Zara, they launched a product, pink jeans. Everyone was wearing it. I think Kate Middleton was like the star of it, and it was basically everywhere on TikTok. Oh yeah, and then the press talked about it as well. So everyone was talking about Kate Middleton wearing these jeans, and they were everywhere on TikTok. So, but when you search pink jeans, this is the really interesting thing. You search pink jeans, Zara don't come up #1. And you can see here on the screenshot, it was actually Next, Marks & Spencer, John Lewis, Amazon even, they were going to get all the traffic, because when you're ranking #1, 2, and 3 on Google, you're probably getting, I think it's 70% of the traffic. Is it 70%?
It's about 15%. I'm sorry.
Is it?
Sorry, that was off. Yeah. So it'd be about 15% click-through rate, or 20% if you're pushing the top positions. I think depends what sort of search term it is, and the competitiveness for obviously Google Ads as well on it. But yeah, it's the majority of clicks still. Yeah.
So they're getting all the traffic, and Zara weren't appearing on page 1, so they were on page 2, and that's very low percentage of click-through rate.
Yeah.
So there's a missed opportunity for Zara and a win for every other brand who ranked for that term. Here it is. I got the data actually. It's 23% for position #1, position #2, 20%, #3, 13. So that's why it's worked 15 years in search. Right, yeah, so more social focused. So we've seen before that TikTok drives people to search. So is there an opportunity for our clients? So here was the search volume for pink jeans, again, proving the fact that if you get something trending on TikTok, search volume increases, removing that subjectivity. Search volume increase 112% for pink jeans, again, showing that it works, that using influencers can get the search volume going. So why does it matter if you rank #1? When Zara's Puffer Gilia was trending on TikTok, this is what happened to searches for that style. Again, went up. Year-on-year searches for Puffer Gilia went up massively, 1,272%. Everyone wanted them. So basically, for Pretty Little Thing, we looked at products we already ranked #1 for and pushed them as a trending item. We identified the halter neck top. So if you searched halter neck top as a product, Pretty Little Thing would come up #1. Now we did an analysis on with their team and what stock they held, and make sure it's a good product that we could push to market and they will create good revenue for them. No point obviously doing it for a product that they have low stock for. So the strategy was choose a product category we ranked #1 for, which was halter neck tops. #2 was gather a list of influencers and trendsetters on social and get them all wearing tops. So this was on TikTok. So basically, the Pretty Little Thing have a massive influencer network, and we sent them all halter neck tops to wear. And next thing, we know that TikTok lands in the press. So we pushed the story to press that the halter neck top was everywhere. And we knew it was everywhere because we pushed it there through influencers. So we could create a whole story around the whole halter neck top. You couldn't miss it. And we created that trend. And step 4 was just PLT to promote the products organically on other social media and through email marketing and have banner ads on website, really pushing the product. And what happened, obviously, everyone starts wearing the style. So you couldn't go on TikTok and celebrities all wearing halter neck tops. And then Pretty Little Thing got put at the center of it. We created the trend, we pushed it to press covered it, creating also really good, getting backlinks back to the profile, to the category page. So we created this story just through influencers and creating that search demand. So the results, what happened? 841% increase in searches for halter neck top. And we knew we were going to get all the traffic because Pretty Little Thing ranked #1. There was 19 backlinks, 4.29 million views, I think, through influencers. And then 47,000 traffic to the product page, right to the halter neck product page, 187% increase in traffic to that product page. And there was 10 million views across all social media on TikTok. Huge numbers. So next one, we basically did it for another client. So Interflora came to us and said, can you generate a social media campaign that puts Interflora at the center of Father's Day conversations? So this is where the idea gen comes in again. They've come to us with a brief, we need to explore it. And like I said at the start, it's all about insight, absorbing, getting data, going on different publications, absorbing all the thing, and hopefully something comes to you when you've got that data. And what it was for us was a very sad stat that the first time most men receive any kind of floral arrangement is at their funerals.
Slightly depressing. Sorry.
Slightly depressing, yeah. Ever received flowers?
No.
Yeah, me neither. So the strategy. We also know that if you search Father's Day flowers, Interflora ranked #1, so we just needed to create that demand there for them. So choose a product category, we ranked #1 for Father's Day flowers. Step 2, same as the PLT halter neck top, we gathered a list of influencers and trendsetters on social and get them to gift flowers to their fathers. We then pushed it to press because we created the trend, we knew it was going to land. And then stage 4 was promote the product on other channels organically. Exactly the same strategy. And we had the data, we knew this would work because we'd studied other things go viral on TikTok and you could see the search volume. So we told the client, this is going to work and this is why. And yeah, got picked up in the press, got an Adweek, Drum, and then some horticulture targeted publications as well. Garden Illustrated, I can see there.
It's my go-to one.
Yeah, go-to. And the results were up to 2,181 new users to that site, to that product page, 58% increase in revenue. And the real interesting thing is search demand again. So this is a graph showing the year-on-year search demand from 2021 Father's Day in 2020. And obviously you can see that massive spike there. And that's when we ran our campaign. And all we did was pushed it through influence and PR, and we created that search demand for the product.
So I guess key takeaways, this is not the best slide in the world, I apologize, but I think showing up to brainstorms with research is really important. take learnings, but don't copy. So when we do theme analysis in BuzzSumo, we don't say we're just going to do the same idea that's worked before or copy other people's work. It's basically analysing what is done well and how we can make it better. No one had done a proper good campaign on light pollution apart from National Geographic, and we did something that hadn't really been done before. So it's not just copying the same themes. Vet the ideas as much as possible. I'd recommend having some sort of vetting process of like, not only can you actually do them, which sometimes can be a thing too, but more like, is it going to work? It's ticking 4 out of 5 boxes. We're pretty confident it's going to work. Really important to have that done. Use research to help getting sign off. Like I said, sign off is the biggest sort of pain for most people, definitely in agencies, I think, in terms of pitching ideas to get sign off to brands. Using that research and packaging it all up, that removes the subjectivity. Experiment with new formats. A lot more people seem to be using that slider code now since the light pollution campaign did really well. So there's different formats out there, and that's why it's important to collaborate with creative people to make sure that the absolute best format fits that idea. And we do idea first and then match that to the format. Add as much layers and as much depth as possible, because if your main angle doesn't work, you need a fallback basically when it comes to promoting campaign ideas. And campaign ideas that have too many is also something that's pretty convoluted and not actually that good, but you need at least 1 or 2 or 3 real strong angles you can go out to press with. So I'd say they're all the main kind of takeaways. And we've got any questions. I think there's been quite a lot in the chat, but we've not actually seen it.
Yeah, we didn't look at the chat one. Sorry about that. True.
Yes, you can get the slides after the webinar. I think they're emailed around by BuzzSumo. How do you get a Rise at 7 hoodie? That is a good question, James. How do you get it? Because I struggled, to be honest.
But yeah, there was a lot of people wanting them in the office. They didn't get distributed straight away, but tweet me and Luke, get in contact. We'll see.
We'll take one off someone's back or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
I feel PR is time consuming. It's not something an SEO person can do on the side. Agree, disagree? Yeah. Like it's got so much harder. It is time consuming. Especially if something isn't working, you have to re-angle it. You have to watch open rates and see what's actually working when you go out with stuff. It is difficult. It's not something that it's a skilled job now. And I think using experts is the best way to go.
And there's more to it than just the SEO. There's brand benefits there, obviously, with PR, and it shouldn't just be the SEO. If a big organization shouldn't just be the SEO doing the PR on the side. There's got to be more to it with a bigger picture.
How do you scroll down on your laptop?
Never used Apple before.
No. If you were targeting developers, where would you start to look for ideas? I think you try and look at what developers are interested in and do a theme analysis from that. There's not going to be loads of articles published about the developing, or at least that term in itself. So I'd look in the specifics within developing and start exploring themes like that. So that's probably the best way to start when it's especially if it's something very specific. I'll try and branch that out into something that they're actually interested in as well. How do you convince the news writers to use your content? I get a really good PR person to do that because I'm rubbish at it. So it all comes down to a press release and an outreach email, and it needs to be really good, it needs to be succinct, it needs to have everything that journalist needs to be able to host that on their site. You can't give them half an email or half the information because that's not enough now. Images, video assets, the creatives, all in the Dropbox, the links to data, methodology, there's all things that journalists will want, and you've got to make it as easy as possible for them. Why doesn't Misguided rank #1 for dog jumpers anymore? Good question. It's a great question. They didn't have the product ranges like in volume anymore. So if you landed on that site and it was in first position for a bit and they had such a small range, then you click back and you go on another result, and that sends negative signals. So they went down the rankings because they didn't have enough enough products basically. Yeah. You give any example related to a solar panel industry too? That's going to be pretty hard to do on the spot, but I would use a similar format. So you're going to pull out loads more themes than what's in my head for solar panels. If you do some theme analysis on BuzzSumo in particular, see what's done well before in the solar panel industry, and also I'll try and tie that to something that's going on and the wider issue of environmental friendly and all that sorts of renewable energy. I'd explore them as themes and then try and tie that back as close as you can to the product.
Any suggestions for local mom and pop brick and mortar business, not global? It can definitely, PR and this sort of stuff can be done on a budget. It's obviously helps when you've got access to a massive PR team and freelancers, but it's all about the content really. If the idea is strong.
Yeah, I think so. It can be difficult because like the ideas we've been through there, they've gone through a data team, a content team, a creative team, as well as someone within my team looking after it. So there's quite a lot of people involved now. It can be quite hard to do without, because they're all different skill sets as well. You're not going to be good at everything. It can be quite hard to do it on a smaller scale sometimes, but I think there's other ways of doing it. So reactive PR is another way of doing it, and picking up trends and matching that with a comment can be really effective without going into design and development. There will be a recording of the webinar sent around.
Our service is more difficult than marketing. Our service is more difficult than marketing products. For instance, we provide wireless internet access.
Some of them are, I'm going to say, drier. So there's drier areas that you can work in, and it can sometimes actually that's not been explored by creatively. So actually there's room, the scope there. Like whereas you're doing it in gaming, pretty much everything's been done. Or automotive, there's so many automotive campaigns that it's hard to find something that hasn't been done before. Whereas actually if you're working in a slightly drier niche, not many people are that creative in it. So you can start pulling out ideas that have just not been done before in that sector.
Yeah, and also like newsjacking for a B2B service, like internet, you provide wireless internet access, you're probably an expert on that subject. So when something happens in the media around internet security, you can comment on that. You can reach out to journalists and comment on what's happening. We do work with Dojo, a payment provider, basically the card machines you see in the shops, and we have really good success just jumping on what's happening in the media, like newsjacking it.
I think using this process, if you're a niche or a B2B company, we still do our own PR as well. We can still do our own campaigns. Sometimes we just do things because we think they're quite cool, and we're technically B2B. That I've worked in a B2B specific agency for around a year. It's similar to a very niche sector, in fact, that not everyone's doing something really creative, is a bit behind B2C. So again, I think the people you're talking to, even in B2B, are still a person. You're not talking to a company. So I think finding out who your actual target market is and what their job title are, what that they are actually interested in, and the kind of content that is published around that, if any, and try and expand that out until you get enough evidence that something is talked around that topic area.
Suggestions for solar panel company in the US. Same as...
There's a lot of solar panel comments on this. How do you evaluate links? Feels like a lot of links often go via affiliates, especially when they're targeted around products. That's a really good point. So product PR in particular you'll tend to get a much higher split of affiliate links, and they can be good because they drive traffic, even though it's not an SEO benefit. So evaluating links, I think you try and look for authority and relevancy, so authoritative sites, but then also relevant sites that are driving traffic. Tyler's a great example, was the biggest traffic driver to Misguided. Whenever we got something on Tyler, it would drive loads of traffic. So I think evaluating links, you can look at something really simple like DA as a starting point, but best not to be done in isolation. We'll try and look at the relevancy and where those links are pointing, how much traffic they're driving, that kind of thing. Count no follow links, yeah, we do.
Yeah, they can provide so much traffic. If a company, at the end of the day, they want to make money. If a no follow link provides so much traffic and then turns into revenue, you're going to count them. Any tips for global B2B that operates in very niche corners where data isn't always available? Yeah,
I think similar to points before on the B2B front, data does help, but you can actually be just quite creative. You can get coverage and do well from a PR point of view just from being creative, and it doesn't always have to be data based. If you have any unique data, that's the best form. So if you've got anything, if you're a global B2B operator and you've got unique data that can be repurposed and pushed out in terms of PR, that's the best kind, basically. Your favorite campaigns in 2022 so far? I'm trying to think. Past our own.
I saw a really cool one which went around the Netherlands. It didn't, like, the results weren't mind blowing, but it had a really good cause. Basically, there was a stat that there was more CEOs named, I can't remember the name, it's like Steve or something. There was more CEOs named this common male generator than female CEOs total. And what happened was they pushed this story out, the stat quite similar to the FARs. They want a bit of a sad stat. And then what happened? It got loads of press in the Netherlands, and then CEOs actually started changing their Twitter handles to this name, and it was just a really good cause campaign. It was one of my favorites this year, not massively well known about.
I think when it comes to favorite campaigns as well, and the reason why I struggle to think of them, we have our PR team are plugged in, and they get, you know, what other agencies are doing, what else is doing well in PR. I try not to look at what others are doing, because then it just reframes my brain. And if everyone's doing a map, then all I can think about is a map when I'm coming up with ideas. So I actually try and stay away a little bit from like the constant source of campaigns coming through, basically.
Opinions on the metaverse.
Upload me to it so I can relax for a bit.
Yeah, well, it's the future, but I don't know what it's going to look like now. Probably not what it's looking like now.
What I think, what if your client is protective about what appears on their site, requires specific expertise, how would you go about produce a page to link to? I think it's a good point. Like sometimes you work in I'm
just laughing at the next question coming down.
Okay, I'll answer this one first. So the client, in terms of client protective about what appears on their site, that happens quite a lot, and it, you know, we can go through layers and layers and layers of sign off, and sometimes it never actually can get done. I think you've got to work with each other to get something you're comfortable with. If you're not an expert in the space of that campaign, you need to find an expert and use them to kind of front that campaign for you and make it legit. I think expertise it needs to be watertight, basically. So you need to either get an internal expertise to be able to provide that value, or, like I said, external. How good are you at darts? My auntie is a 10-time world darts champion.
Yeah, that's a true story. Yeah.
I'm really good at darts. It's the only thing I've ever been naturally good at. Like, not many people say darts in their blood, but I could recreate that Ted Lasso scene like pretty easily. I'd
probably
say.
See that on the source at some point.
Probably.
Would you say the large majority of your campaigns, even the visual creative ones, are backed up with data, and is the data key to learning the coverage?
I think our PRs would definitely say so. I think having some sort of data hook, even if we've got a big campaign that's really creative. I'm thinking of, we did a campaign where we did SOS in the sand, written in the sand, of places that were struggling during COVID, as a tourism campaign to try and get people back to those places. It was like a really cool video, loved it, really creative. But actually the things that picked up the links was more around the stats around money lost in tourism from those areas. So we try and back up any campaign, even if it's a big creative campaign, with data, and it gives them, the PR team, more angles. It
can all come down with like that, just a small bit of insight, and it can lead, and you can do like use BuzzSumo and look, and you'll probably get more angles from it. Content development that builds search brand very instantly. I propose to a client that we build their brand through content. They're in a space that literally has little to no search volume in their industry.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Did the right thing. Thank you. How much does speed play into success of your campaigns? Any learnings on how to successfully get an idea approved quickly by a client to jump on a trend?
Yeah. This is so we've got a whole reactive PR team that are plugged into what's going on. We've got tools that basically give us internal search trends matched up with external search trends. So I can give you an example of demand for Crocs went up massively internally on internal search. We put that through Google Trends. We can see it went up externally as well. More people searching for Crocs. We found a trend. We found the cause of the trend was Nicki Minaj basically spotted wearing Crocs, so brought Crocs back. Me and James are both wearing a pair now.
Just can't see them.
Yeah. So that you need to be first to get that story out before anyone else. So speed is a massive thing when it comes to reactive PR. The bigger campaigns, a bit annoying when you get further down the line and someone launches one before you. So speed does play a part, but they take a bit longer. In terms of getting it approved by clients, sometimes we have Slack channels with clients, and we just bash things in there. We say, here's the comment, are you okay with that? Instead of saying, can you provide a comment? We will do that and then get sign off, basically.
It's all about having that good client relationship. So at the start, we realized that speed does play a massive part in the results. So when the client understands that, you can just work out a process, and that can be different for different clients. It can be Slack. Is it an email? Is there pre-approved comments? There's loads of different ways you can work around it, but it's just about having that open conversation at the start and trying to remove any like blocks in that, because speed really does equal results.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's nice. Do you ever run into issues with image/video content? Say, for example, you wanted to use a film/still image in a press release. How do you get around the copyright issues?
Yeah, we're having it now with the campaign we're working on. I think the sole concept, for example, is like inspired by. We heavily lean on inspiration and inspired by, as opposed to here's
copyright.
Copyright, yeah. It can be difficult. Sometimes it's best to stay away from anything that you know is just going to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
I think, did we get The Rock email us?
Yeah, we've not actually told anyone this, but yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, The Rock emailed us basically on a campaign that we'd done. I assume it was Dwayne Johnson himself, but
he was CC'd in the email.
Yeah. So The Rock was CC'd in the email. Yeah, I don't know if you told anyone that, but I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
Everyone walking around like we've just been emailed by
The Rock.
Yeah. So yeah, it does happen. It can be difficult. Sometimes sometimes it's best to stay away from it. And then if not, try and. I'm not an expert in it myself, so whatever advice I'm going to give here, I usually ask other people that are experts when it comes to that specific case. I'm very first launched a business in 2012, and I got sued by Getty Images for using the wrong image on my website, so I'm just not the right person to be asked about this.
I have heard stories of some brands having like a risk scale and almost thinking, is it worth that potential copyright? Because the amount of press and like revenue and fame almost that comes with it. And I think it will almost depend sometimes on what that brand really feels comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Content management system, ideas on how to be visible in another land where not many people know about it.
I assume that means you're a CMS provider. London Lucky Stars is a good example. They were sort of well known. They sort of ranked quite well in the US for a few bits, PR wise, and not really appeared on anything. So as long as you get a good PR campaign, it shouldn't matter too much about not being visible in another place. In particular, try and have like a global angle with your PR campaigns, basically. So that's one way to get it into multiple different countries or a specific place.
Yeah, well, look like we've finished all the questions. We will just put our LinkedIn and Twitter up here. If you have like any questions, if you want to say Luke was not that funny and questionable, reach out to us. I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks so much for listening. And yeah, like James said, feel free to tweet us, email us, whatever, and we'll happily answer any more questions that you got.